sexually abused, whether man or woman, it affects them. It affects them. Yes, salvation comes, but salvation comes to their spirit. Yes, they are regenerated, and I guarantee 100% they are going to heaven. But here, the soul is still with them. The soul is still here. And they walk with this pain in their heart, and there is no way out of it. Why inner healing is so important? Because when God saves us, He does not leave us the way He finds us. He wants us to be totally, completely free. I wish your souls prosper. I wish that you prosper both in your soul and physical and spirit. I mean, He wants us to prosper, to be in all our lives. When the life, Zoe life of God invades your heart, He wants you to be totally, absolutely free from everything. You see, when you're free, this is how you know that you're free. That even when they speak an insult, it doesn't hurt you. Even when someone seems like your enemy, this is when you know you're free, because you sit on the table with your enemies and laugh with them. Even when they come and attack you and do whatever, you are not downcasted. You keep on going. That is your Zoe life. That's the position you're supposed to be in as a child of God. Let me talk about inner healing quickly here, because we need it. We need to be delivered. We need to be free. See, if you're being wounded, if you are wounded in your childhood, if you are wounded in any way, you're wounded by your parents, you're wounded by, oh Lord, just had this, and as I speak it, healing is going to come to you. I won't just mention your name. You're wounded by incest. It was an uncle. Incest. It was an uncle. And it hurts you. You never said it anywhere. You'll never confess it. The sexual abuse strongly comes on me that someone here wounded by an uncle. And it was an incest act. And it breaks your heart by remembering it, because you never shared it to nobody. The Lord is going to heal you and going to set you free. When sexual abuse happens, we are shrinked. We are broken inside. Rape, abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. These wounds we carry, we grow with them. We grow in bodies, but in the spirit, in the soul, we are still young. The memory of that becomes so fresh. The weapon for that is going to be confession, which I'll talk about in a second here. Confession of those stuff. Unforgiveness sets in our hearts because of what happens to our hearts. Unforgiveness sets in, and unforgiveness becomes the hindrance to hear God. And the enemy hides behind the pain. Hear me very well. The devil will always hide behind your pain. He goes behind what happened and he hides there. And he says, don't talk about it. Don't you ever say it. You see, that's why sexual abuses, when it happens, the first thing they tell you, shh, if you say it, I cut off your head. If you speak it, I'll kill you. See, the devil is in darkness and he keeps things in the darkness. One of the things we do in Church Renew is to teach coming out of the light and speak. And we use confession as a weapon. First John says that, 1 John chapter 7, 8, 9, he says, if we say we have no sin, we lie and we make him the liar, and the truth is not in us. But if we confess our sin, he's faithful and just to forgive us. For confession is a weapon that we practice, and we're going to practice here. We're going to help you so that you reach a level where you can utter out some of the unutterable stuff that you have hidden and sat on for years in your lives. God doesn't want you to stay like that. Because the moment you unveil it and you open up, that's where your healing comes. Way back when I was 24 years, I happened to be in the U.S., in the state of Kentucky. I was getting ready on a Friday, getting myself ready to go and teach pastors, leaders, men. They were just a group of men. There were no women. And I was going to speak to them about what I'm talking to you right now. And I knelt down in my room to pray, praying for the morning, how should be, asking the Holy Spirit to go with me. While I was praying, the Holy Spirit brought a memory. He reminded me of an incident that happened to me when I was 8 years. He took me back in Kamocha, where I grew up, and he showed me that incident. When I remembered it, I didn't know how strong that was, how it was there in my heart. And I bitterly started crying. I bawling is like falling down. And I was groaning, and I cried so much when I remembered this incident. I cried so much. And then I started saying, I forgive that person. I forgive that person. I forgive. I claim nothing on this person. I forgive that person. So I cried so much. And the Holy Spirit said, you're okay. But I want you to go tomorrow to the group of men and confess this so that you get your total healing. And themselves will also be healed. That was really very weird. I said, no. In my heart, I say, okay, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that because it's so ashaming. Why should I confess such an act? Something that is awkward, you know? So the morning comes, I go to meet the men, and I start teaching them. And while I'm teaching, the Spirit of God, he says, tell them. The Spirit of God was like, tell them what I said. Tell them that story. Tell them. And I kept on resisting. He said, tell them. Finally, he said to me that if you don't tell them, they won't be set free. So I opened up my mouth and I told them my story. When I was 8 years living in a suburbs of Kampala, in a place called Kamocha, the ghetto place there, on my neighborhood, as a young man, young boy, walking around on the neighborhood, the guy, very mature, and he grabbed my hand and like he grabbed me, and I didn't know why he was grabbing me. He pulled me and bring me to his house, and then when he get there, then he undresses himself and he pushes me, try to molest me or to sodomize me. Then I turn around and I scream. When I screamed, he slaps me in the ear, a very hard slap in the ear. And my ear was like, woo, that. And the pain of that, so I screamed. And then he opened the door, kicked me and pushed me in the trench. There was a long trench, and I fell in the trench. I cried, and I could not even cry over it. But the worst part of it, I could not tell nobody. I was living with my sister and my father. I didn't tell nobody because I blamed myself, maybe because I was playing around there. And I knew who my father was because he was not easy to relate with. You don't tell story like that. You don't talk. There was no liberty to talk about anything at home, so I kept this pain in my heart. The ear was irritating and paining me. By the way, at one point of my life, my ear started bringing pus. That was a miracle. God healed about 25 years later. My ear would ooze pus. It was a big slap. The shame and the pain that I was carrying. Here I am, I'm 25 years in the USA, and God says, you're going to go and tell this story to the men. Now hear me, when I was telling that story, before I finished the story, there was a pastor. He was about 55 years because he said it. They were all Muzungu, they were all Americans. I was the only black person. He said, he fell down and started crying and agonizing and said, Henry, I am that 8-year boy you're talking about. For me, they did not just try to molest me or sodomize me. It happened to me when I was 8 years. And he fell down and he was crying. A few minutes, and his son, who was 17 in the same room, he fell down and he said, it happened to me when I was 8 as well. In the pain and sobbing, and they received their deliverance. Now, some of the things that happen to us in our young age, we never said it, we never talk about it, we carry them and bring them in our marriage. You see the reason why your wife behaves like that, your husband has some kind of mistrust, some way he handles you, because the pain has never been dealt with. You see, when we marry people, we think we just marry our friends, our age mate. No, we are marrying their past. We carry it in our marriage. The past is brought in marriage. But if it is not dealt with, it is going to reflect everybody say action and reaction.